You are 35. You have $340,000. Your sister makes $2,000 more per year than you. She has $9,000. The difference is not your income. The difference is not your neighborhood. The difference is one lease you refused to sign when you were 24 and the 11 years of being pitied for it. This is your life living in the same apartment for 11 years. You are 24. March. A leasing office on the 6th floor of a glass building downtown. The agent has a white smile and a lanyard. She calls you by your first name. She walks you past the rooftop pool, past the co-working lounge, past the gym that smells like new rubber. She stops in front of Unit 1406. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Skyline. You can see 3 zip codes from here. The rent is $2,480 a month. She says it includes concierge. You ask what concierge means exactly. She smiles. She says, it means you belong here. You leave without signing. You go home to your current apartment, studio, 3rd floor, no elevator. The hallway smells like someone else's dinner. Your rent is $780 a month. You have lived here for 6 months. You have not told anyone how much you pay. The bathroom has 1 towel hook. You have 2 towels. One of them lives on the floor. That night, you open a spreadsheet. You type $1,700. The difference, per month, invested at 8% for 11 years. The number at the end is large enough that you close the laptop and go for a walk. You come back. You open it again. The number is still there. You rename the file Do Not Touch. You do not touch it for 11 years. The next morning, coworker named Priya asks where you live. You say the name of the street. Priya says, oh, just oh, 1 syllable. You understand exactly what she means. 3 weeks later, company happy hour. Someone asks for your address to mail the group gift. You write it down. A guy named Marcus glances at it. Marcus lives in the glass building, not your floor, higher. Marcus says, wait, you live over there, like voluntarily? You say yes. Marcus looks at you the way people look at expired milk. He moves on to someone else. 6 months in, dinner with your Aunt Clara. Clara sold a company at 51. She has a house with a library inside it. She does not talk about money at dinner. You tell her about the apartment, the studio, the towel. She does not say anything for a long time. She eats. She sets down her fork. Clara says, do you know what an address really sells you? You say, shelter. Clara shakes her head. Clara says, an address sells you an audience, someone to perform being successful for. Every overpriced lease is a ticket to a show where you're both the actor and the only person watching. You stop eating. Clara says, your studio has no audience. That's the most expensive thing you'll ever own for free. You drive home. The streetlight outside your window flickers. You have stopped noticing it. You are 26. The studio has a new crack above the radiator. You have named it. Tuesday afternoon, your sister Sophie calls. Sophie is 23, 4 months at her job. Sophie says, I found an apartment. You ask where. Sophie says, the new complex by the river, rooftop, concierge. It's only $2,600. You say, Sophie, that's 60% of your take home. Sophie says, but it has a rooftop. As if the rooftop is an answer to what you said. You visit Sophie the following Saturday. The lobby has a water feature, a stone wall, a man in a blazer who nods at Sophie like she's someone. Sophie walks through it all like she's rehearsed. She shows you the view from the rooftop. It is genuinely a good view. Sophie takes a photo of the skyline. She does not look at the skyline. She looks at the photo of the skyline. You say nothing. Monday. Your building's elevator is out again. You take the stairs. 3rd floor. You pass Mrs. Demble in 2B. She is 78. She has lived here for 31 years. She smells like tea and lavender. She says good morning. You say good morning. She goes inside. You keep climbing. That night, 1 a.m. You open the laptop. You look at the file. Do not touch. You open it. The number is larger now. You close it. You lie on your back. The ceiling has a water stain in the shape of something you've never been able to name. You are not okay. Not because you're poor. Because you don't know if you're right. That is different. That is worse. In the next room, through the wall, someone is watching a movie you can't identify. You fall asleep to it. Her cart is full of produce. 2 bags of rice, a carton of eggs. She looks at your building. She looks at you. She says, studio on the 3rd floor? You say, yes. She says, smart. Those walls are thick. You actually sleep. She unlocks her door and walks inside. You stand in the hallway. A woman you don't know just said the only kind thing anyone has said about your apartment in 2 years. You walk upstairs. You sit in the kitchen. The laptop is on the table. The file is there. Do not touch. You open it. The number has grown since last month. You close the laptop. You do not touch it again. Not yet. The doubt is starting to live inside you. The apartment is still the apartment. You do not know it yet, but the question Clara planted is starting to grow roots. You are 27. The studio has a new sound, the radiator. Every morning at 6:14, it makes a sound like someone clearing their throat. You know the exact minute. You've stopped setting an alarm. A Monday, the office kitchen. A colleague named Derek is from HR. Derek is 44. He drives a leased BMW. He pours his coffee. He looks at you. Derek says, "Hey, I want to ask you something personal, and tell me if it's too much." You say, "Okay." Derek says, "Are you struggling? Like financially, are you okay?" Because there are company programs, confidential, no judgment. You say you're fine. Derek says, "Because someone mentioned your building, and I just want you to know there's no shame." You smile. You say, "Thank you." Derek pats your shoulder. Derek walks away. You stand in the kitchen holding a mug that says Best Team. You have $97,000 invested. You do not say this. Thursday, open office, 2 coworkers near the printer. They don't see you. The first one says, "Did you look up his address on the directory?" The second one says, "Yeah." A pause. The first one says, "He went to the same school as Marcus, same degree." Another pause. The second one says, "Some people just make bad choices early and it follows them." You walk past. You do not stop. You get water from the cooler. You stand at your desk. You are not having a bad year. You are 14 months ahead of schedule. You do not say this to anyone. You have not said it to anyone in 3 years. The apartment is still the apartment. Friday, your building's lobby. A package is there for you. A neighbor named Mr. Osei picks it up before you can. He is 71. He has lived in this building for 22 years. He hands it to you. He says, "Good things come quietly in this building." You don't know what he means. You will, later. Sunday, dinner, your father's house. Your mother sets the table. Your father sits at the end. He has worked construction for 31 years. He does not talk about money easily. After dessert, he asks you to help him with something in the garage. You go. He opens a drawer. He takes out an envelope. He says, "There's $4,000 here for a deposit on a real place." You look at the envelope. You know what it cost him to save that. You say you don't need it. He says, "I know you're proud." You say it's not about pride. He says, "Then what is it about?" You don't have an answer that fits inside a garage. You hug him. You put the envelope back in the drawer. He lets you. You drive home. You pass Sophie's building. The lights on the rooftop terrace are on. 3 figures up there with glasses. The view looks the same from down here. You park. You walk upstairs. The radiator says nothing tonight. You sit at the table. You open the laptop, the file. You look at the number. You close it. Sophie calls on a Tuesday. You are eating at your desk. Sophie says she got a roommate. You ask why. Sophie says the rent went up. $2,850 now. You say nothing. Sophie says, "The roommate is fine. She's clean. It's fine." You say, "Okay." Sophie says, "Don't say it." You say, "I didn't say anything." Sophie says, "You didn't have to." She hangs up first. That night, grocery store. You push a cart through the pasta aisle. Your phone buzzes. A bank notification. Your portfolio crossed $200,000 today. You stand in the aisle. A man passes you with a cart full of expensive things. He glances at your shirt, your shoes. He looks away. You stand there, holding a box of pasta that costs $1.89. The fluorescent light above you flickers once. You put the pasta in the cart. You go home. You do not tell anyone about the number. The apartment is still the apartment. You do not know it yet, but pity hurts more than mockery. And silence is the most expensive thing you've ever owned. You are 29. Her name is Nadia. You have been together for 10 months. Nadia is an engineer. Nadia rents a 1-bedroom in a mid-rise. She has never asked about your address, not once. A Saturday in September, a colleague's wedding, outdoor venue, candles everywhere, a jazz trio. You drive Nadia in your car. Nadia says nothing about the building you left from. She checks her earrings in the visor mirror. She says, "You look good." She means it. You park. You walk toward the lights. The party is on a terrace, open bar, a view of the city. Sophie is there. Sophie has a new dress and a credit card that is 70% full. Sophie hugs Nadia. Sophie pulls you aside. She says, "She seems really great." You say she is. Sophie says, "She doesn't know yet, does she?" You say, "Know what?" Sophie says, "About the apartment." Sophie says, "I mean, when are you going to upgrade, for her at least?" You look at Nadia across the terrace. Nadia is laughing with someone she just met. She looks entirely at home. She has no idea what this conversation is about. That is what makes it worse. You say, "She's fine." Sophie says, "Yeah, but are you?" You walk back to Nadia. You do not answer. At the reception, Sophie arrives with someone new, a man named Theo. Theo works in private equity. Theo has a watch that costs more than your annual rent. Theo shakes your hand. Theo says, "Sophie tells me you live in the third floor studio on Carver Street." He says it the way people say a diagnosis. You say yes. Theo says, "Bold choice." He says bold the way people say foolish. Nadia is beside you. Nadia squeezes your hand once. She says nothing. She does not look at Theo when she says, "He's the most intentional person I've ever met." Theo smiles. Theo gets a drink. Nadia looks at you. She says quietly, "I've seen the file. I use your laptop sometimes." You should have told me sooner. You say nothing. She says, "How long?" You say, "Since I was 24. She looks at the party around you. She says, "Okay, just okay," and she means it. That night, Nadia goes home. You sit in the studio at 1 a.m. You open your phone. An apartment app. You scroll. A one-bedroom in the glass building downtown. $2,600 a month. Virtual tour available. You tap it. Floor-to-ceiling windows. The skyline. A concierge desk. You sit on the edge of your bed. You think about Theo's watch. You think about Sophie's face when she introduced him. You think about what it would feel like to say the glass building when someone asks where you live. Your thumb hovers over schedule a tour. You think about Clara. You close the app. You put the phone down. You sit in the dark for a long time. The radiator says nothing. The crack above it says nothing. You open the laptop. The file. The number is $187,000. You look at it for 2 full minutes. You close the laptop. You lie on your back. Outside, the streetlight that used to flicker has been fixed. You notice this for the first time. You fall asleep. The next morning, a coffee shop near your building, you order a black coffee, $2. You sit by the window. A woman at the next table is on her laptop. She types fast. She has earbuds in. She is wearing the same kind of clothes you wear to work. She stands to leave. She looks at you. She says, "Nice neighborhood to actually live in, right? Not just to perform in." You say, "Yeah." She says it the way someone says something they've been thinking for years. She leaves. You sit with your $2 coffee. You do not know her name. You will not see her again. But something about the way she said it stays. That afternoon, a laundromat 2 blocks from your building. A man folds shirts next to you. He is on his phone. He says, "The raise didn't cover it. The rent, the car note, the gym, the subscriptions. I'm running to stay still." He hangs up. He looks at you. He says, "You live around here?" You say yes. He says, "Cheap building?" You say, "Affordable." He says, "I pay $2,900 downtown. I don't know for what anymore." He picks up his bag. He walks out. You fold your last shirt. You do not know it yet, but tonight was the night you almost moved. The apartment is still the apartment. You are 31. Your lease renews again. Landlord raises rent $60. You are now paying $1,020 a month. You say yes without negotiating. Tuesday in January, 7 a.m. Your building's heat goes out. The whole third floor. You put on 2 coats. You make coffee on the stovetop. You sit at the table. The window is fogged from the cold outside. You write a number in the fog with your finger. $214,000. You watch it disappear as the glass clears. You go to work. That evening, you come home. The heat is back. Mrs. Dembley from 2B knocks on your door. She has a plate covered in foil. She says, "I made extra. You had a hard morning." You say you're fine. She says, "I know. Take it anyway." You eat alone at the table. The food is better than anything you've ordered in a year. You think about the number in the fog. You think about what Clara said 3 years ago. You think about the audience you never had. The apartment is still the apartment. A Saturday morning, you are in the lobby. A delivery driver comes in with a package. He is 27. He has a cap on backwards and a scanner in his hand. His name tag says Kofi. Kofi checks the name. He checks your face. He says, "Rough building defined. Been delivering here 3 years. Always the same faces." You say, "Yeah." Kofi says, "You been here a while?" You say, 7 years. Kofi stops what he is doing. Kofi says, 7 years? Same place? You say yes. Kofi shakes his head slowly. He smiles. He says, "My uncle did that. Stayed in the same apartment for 14 years. Everyone called him stuck. He called it a decision. He bought a building last year, 3 units. He scans the package. He says, 'Keep making your decision, man.' He walks out. You stand in the lobby. Mr. Osei is watching from the staircase. He says nothing. He just nods. You nod back. That weekend, Sophie calls. Sophie says she has to move. The roommate left. The landlord won't negotiate. The rent goes to $3,100 next month. Sophie says, "Can I stay with you for 2 weeks?" You say yes. Sophie arrives with 3 bags. She looks at the studio. She looks at the crack above the radiator. She looks at the one towel hook. She says nothing for a long time. Then she says, "How do you live here?" You say, "Easily." She looks at you the way people look at something they suddenly don't understand. You do not explain. You do not have to. You are 35. You have $312,000. Your sister Sophie makes $1,800 more per year than you. She has $11,000. The difference is not your income. The difference is not your luck. The difference is one lease you chose to keep signing for 11 years. And the 11 years of saying nothing while everyone else talked. It is a Friday in April. Your landlord sends an email. The building sold. All units need to be vacated in 90 days. You sit with the email for a long time. Then you smile. Not because of the money, because you are ready. You call Clara. Clara picks up on the second ring. You say, "The building's sold. I have to move." Clara says nothing for a moment. Then she says, "How much?" You tell her. Clara says, "Good? Good. Just good. One word." You say, "Well, that's it? Just good?" Clara says, "I said what I meant." You hang up. You sit at the table in the studio one last time. The crack above the radiator is still there. The one towel hook is still there. The streetlight outside is fixed and steady. You open the laptop. You close the file called "Do Not Touch." Your name. You call it done. The apartment is still the apartment, but you are not still you. You are not sad. You sit on the edge of your bed in the studio. One last time, you open the laptop. The file is renamed. Done. You look at it, you close it, you take out your phone, you open the investment account. The number is $312,000. You look at it the way you look at something you built with your own hands and have never once shown anyone. That afternoon, Clara calls. Clara is 67 now. Clara is in her house with the library inside it. Clara says, "I heard the building sold." You ask how she knew. Clara says, "Sophie called me. She stayed with you." A pause. Clara says, "Do you remember what I told you at dinner all those years ago about the audience?" You say you remember every word. Clara says, "Most people spend their whole lives performing for a room that's always empty. You were the first person in a long time who just turned off the lights and left." You sit on the edge of the bed. You wipe your eye with the back of your hand. Clara says, "You didn't save money." A pause. "You bought yourself back." She hangs up. You sit with the silence for a moment. It feels different from every other silence in this apartment. This one is full. That evening, you walk to a real estate office 3 blocks from your building. You are not looking to rent, you are looking to buy. There is a 2-bedroom on the 4th floor of a building 6 streets away. $194,000. No concierge, no rooftop, thick walls, good light. The agent is 32. She shows you the kitchen. She shows you the view, a tree, a quiet street, nothing impressive. She says, "It's not glamorous." You say, "I know." She says, "Most people want the view." You say, "I've been choosing what most people don't want for 11 years. She looks at you. She does not fully understand. You make an offer that afternoon. Cash, full price, no negotiation needed. She calls you back in 40 minutes. The offer is accepted. Your phone buzzes. A text from Sophie. It says, "Can we talk? I don't know what to do." You read it twice. You text back. You say, "Come over." Sophie arrives at 9 o'clock. Sophie sits on the floor because you are already packing. Sophie looks around the studio. She looks at the crack above the radiator. She looks at the one towel hook. Sophie says, I used to feel sorry for you in here. You hand her a coffee. You sit across from her on a box. Sophie says, how did you do it? Be honest. You think about Clara. You think about Kofi. You think about Nadia. You think about your father's envelope in the garage drawer. You say, I stopped performing. Sophie does not understand. You say, every apartment I didn't sign, every dinner I left early, every time I said I was fine when everyone assumed I wasn't. I was building something no one could see, and I stopped needing them to see it. Sophie looks at her coffee. She says, but wasn't it lonely? You think about that for a long time. You say, yes. And then it wasn't. Sophie nods slowly. Sophie says, I have $9,000. I make more than you. You say, I know. Sophie says, that's insane. You say, no, it's just compounding. Sophie laughs. You laugh. For the first time in 11 years, you laugh about the number out loud with someone else in the room. You drive Sophie home in the car you bought last week. A 2020 Honda Civic, 51,000 miles, $9,400. Cash. Nothing about it will impress anyone Sophie knows. Sophie gets out. She stands on the sidewalk. She looks at the car. She looks at you. She says, maybe I need to stop performing too. You say, maybe. You drive home. The radio works. The heater works. The car does what cars do. You park outside the studio one last time. You sit in the car for a minute. You think about the leasing agent who said, you belong here. You think about Derek from HR. You think about Theo's watch. You think about Mrs. Demble's plate of food. You think about Mr. Osei on the staircase. You think about Kofi who said, keep making your decision, man. They all saw an address. You saw the question. The question was never, where should you live? The question was, who are you when nobody is watching? You finally answered it. 11 years of answering it, quietly, alone, in a studio with one towel hook and a crack above the radiator, and a file you couldn't stop opening. Maybe you're the one living in the glass building right now, card at 80%, view you never look at. Maybe you're already in the studio, not sure if you're disciplined or just stuck. Maybe you're Sophie. Either way, there's a question waiting in every lease you sign or don't sign, every month you invest or don't, every room you perform in or leave. Whether you answer it is up to you. The apartment is still the apartment, but you are not still you. If you want to see what happens when you stop performing entirely, take the stairs.